7th graders. I can't be with you here today, but I didn't want you to get behind. So I'm recording this video to make sure that you stay up to speed on our pacing guide for this unit. So what I have here is a quiz, and I want you to correct it. So I want you to put a check mark next to the questions that are done correctly, and I want you to put an X on the questions that are not done correctly, and then I want you to correct them. So go ahead and pause this video, spend a few minutes going through on a separate sheet of paper and seeing which ones are correct, which ones aren't, and correcting those ones that are not correct. Go ahead and click pause now. All right, let's go ahead and see how you did. This first one looks good to me, so I'm going to put a check mark. Okay. The second one, it looks like they may have forgotten to distribute to that second number, because 2 times 3x is 6x, and then 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Okay, so that was their error right there. So that one was not correct. This next one, it looks like it's correct. Let's just make sure though. Negative 3x times 4y is going to be negative 12xy. And then negative 3x times negative 10 is a positive 30x. So yes, I would say that one is good. The next one, let's take a look here. 5x times 3x is going to be 15, and then x times x is actually going to be x squared. Whenever you're multiplying two numbers together like that, we can use that squared symbol. And then 5x times 2x is 10xy. So that one actually was incorrect. Let's look at this next one. This looks good to me. 15x divided by 5 is 3x. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And then here, 8x divided by 4 is, oops, sorry, I forgot to give this one a check mark. 8x divided by 4 is 2x. Negative 4 divided by 4, oh, it looks like it actually should be negative 1. So let me go ahead and write this out. So 8x divided by 4 is 2x. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. Okay, so that one was incorrect. The last one, the last couple here, let's check it out. We have, they actually did it backwards, which we're actually going to learn how to do this today, but let's go the way that we know. 3 times 4x is 12x, and that looks good. And then 3 times 1, that should actually be a 3. So let's go ahead and fix this. So 12x, and then 3 times 1 is 3. So that one was incorrect. Next one here. If we distribute, this is negative 2x, that looks good. Then negative 2 times negative 4 is a positive 8, so that is actually great. Okay, hopefully you found all those mistakes and were able to correct them. Now what I need you to do is get a piece of paper out for notes. All right. We're going to be going backwards. We're going to be doing the distributive property backwards now. So let's go ahead and set up our paper. And you should be taking notes right along with me. I will be checking to make sure that you have these notes when I do a notebook check for you at your next quiz. So your name, this is Mrs. Mack. Now, I'm doing this for all 3 classes, so I'm going to leave the period blank, whatever period you are in. And then today is 10/22/19. Okay, so today we are going to factor algebraic expressions. So I can factor algebraic expressions. Okay, so really we're just learning how to manipulate expressions this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with something that is already kind of factored. So let's take a look at this example. If you have 7 times 26 plus 7 times 14. Well, they're both being multiplied by 7. So we can actually rewrite this by pulling that 7 out, like the opposite of the distributive property. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take the 7 out here, and I'm going to take the 7 out here. And so what you're left with is 7 times the whole thing, 26 plus 14. So that's what it looks like when you factor an expression, okay? Let's just try one more like this, and then we're going to get into what it looks like when we actually have to do the factoring ourselves. Because in these cases, it's done for us. So let's say that we have 4 times 33 minus 4 times 28. Okay, well, you have the common factor of 4 in both of these. So we can pull this out front, doing the opposite of the distributive property. So this is going to be 4 times the whole thing, 33 minus 28. Okay? I'm hoping that makes sense to you. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like now when you have some variables in the mix, okay? So let's say that we have 7x plus 14. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of what both of these terms are divisible by. In this case, I can see that this term right here is divisible by 7. And this term right here is divisible by 7. So I'm actually going to factor out a 7 for both of these. So if I factor out a 7 here in the front, I'm left with x. If I factor out a 7 here, I'm left with 2. Okay? So this is what it looks like when you factor an algebraic expression. And again, we don't know what that variable is, so we just need to leave it like this. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to have you try it out. So let's say we have negative 3x minus 27. Well, I can already tell that they're both divisible by 3, but even more, they're both negative. And so I think in this case, I would like to pull the whole thing out, negative 3. So this will be negative 3, and what I'm left with here is an x. And if I pull negative 3 out from here, I'm left with positive 9, okay? And if you're ever unsure of whether or not you factored it correctly, you can distribute it again and make sure you did it right. So, like for example, if I'm going to check it over here, and I take negative 3 times x plus 9 and distribute it out, I've got negative 3 times x, so this is negative 3x, and then negative 3 times 9, that's negative 27. If I get the same thing after I redistribute it, then I know that I've done it correctly. I know I've done that factoring correctly. Okay. Let's go ahead and get some practice now. So let's do 9x minus 27. Let's do 10y minus 25. Let's skip a few lines. I probably need to move this up as well. Okay, so number 3, we're going to do 8n plus 28. And then 4, we're going to do negative 6x plus 30. Okay, so go ahead and pause this video now and try these out, and then you can click play again as soon as you're ready, and I'll show you whether or not you did it correctly. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to try to factor these. Let's go ahead and talk it over. I can see that this term right here and this term right here are both divisible by 9. So I'm going to factor out a 9. And when I do that, I'm left with x here and negative 3 here. Again, if you want to double check your answer, just distribute it and make sure that you get back to where you started. Okay. This next one, there's a 10 here, but 25 is not divisible by 10. So I'm going to have to say that 5 is going to be the greatest common factor in this situation. So I'm going to factor out a 5. And what I'm left with is 2 and a y. And then I'm left with a negative 5 here. Okay. Again, if you need help, just redistribute it and make sure that you did it correctly. Okay, number 3. This is divisible by 8, but this one is not divisible by 8. It's only divisible by 4. So that's the greatest common factor. So I'm going to pull out a 4, and I'm left with 2n. And then 28 divided by 4 is 7. Okay. Number 4, you have a 6 here, and that's also divisible by 6. And I don't like to leave negatives out in front like that. I don't want to leave negative x inside the parentheses. So I'm going to pull out the whole thing, negative 6. So then I'm left with x here. Negative 6 times what number is positive 30? Hopefully you're saying negative 5. Okay. Because negative 6 times negative 5 is positive 30. So that's what it should look like if we pull that negative out. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when we have some variables in the mix for this. Some extra variables, I should say. So let's try an example. Sometimes you're going to have variables in both the terms. So a good example would be this. So you're going to, x and y are different, so you're not going to be able to factor out an x or a y. But you can factor out something else. It looks like we have, they're both divisible by 8. And since that first one is negative, I'm going to pull out a negative 8. What I'm left with here then is 3 and an x. And if I pull negative 8 out of here, negative 8 times what number is positive 16? Hopefully you're saying negative 2. And then you also have that y, so we're going to leave it like that. Another example dealing with some variables, sometimes you can factor out a variable. So let's go ahead and do another example. I'm kind of running out of space on this page and I don't want to flip it over yet. So let's go ahead and write it out like this. I really don't like how they're doing this. It's much cleaner if you do 4x minus 5xy. But such is life. I'm actually going to rewrite it the way that I like it. So I'm going to do 4x minus 5xy minus 3x. Well, in this case, there is no common factor that is a number in this situation. But if you look at it, they all have an x. So you can actually factor out an x for this. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take out an x. And what I'm left with is 4 minus 5 and then the y. And then the x is going to be gone here, so this is minus 3. Okay. I hope I'm not losing you on this. Let's go ahead and try a couple of more. I'm going to have you practice a few, and then we'll move on. So let me turn this over. We're going to go back up to the top there, and let's do some practice. All right, number 1. Let's get some decimals in there. So negative, oh, I don't know if I want to do that to you. That one's pretty mean. Let's do this. Negative 4 minus 12z. And if you've ever wondered why I put that little line on the z, it's to make sure it doesn't look like a 2. It's just something that mathematicians do to keep their work straight. Okay, so that's 1. 2, we'll do negative 27x minus 33y. And let's do 3. We'll do negative 2x minus x. Okay. Go ahead and pause the video, give these 3 problems a shot, and then when you're ready, go ahead and click play again, and we'll see how you did. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to work through those problems. Let's go ahead and see what they have in common here. It looks like you have a negative 4. And it looks like this is also divisible by a negative 4. So I'm going to pull a negative 4 out here. And what I'm left with is 1, because 1 times a negative 4 is a negative 4. And then this negative is going to be gone, so I'm left with positive. And that's going to be 3z. Now, you may have struggled a little bit with this, and that's fine. But I recommend that you just distribute it out again to make sure that you did it correctly. Because my thinking here was that I had a negative 4. What times a negative 4 would be negative 12z, and it's going to have to be a positive 3z. Okay. This one right here, it looks like there's a negative that can be factored out, and these are both divisible by 3. Your variables, though, are x and y. You cannot factor out a variable because they're not the same. So I'm going to factor out a negative 3 here. And what I'm left with is 9x, and then negative 3 times what is negative 33? That's going to be a positive 11, and I'm left with y. Okay, looks good. Factor it out if you need to make, or distribute it out if you need to make sure you did it correctly. And then here, I have a negative for both of them, and I also have an x in both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the whole thing negative x. Now what I'm left with here, the negative got pulled out, so I'm left with a positive 2, and my x got pulled out as well. And then this negative and this x got pulled out. So what I'm left with is a positive 1. I want you to make sure you don't just completely eliminate this term. It does not go away. You need the 1 there. And if you were to factor this out again, and I'll show you, if you're going to factor this out again, this is negative x times 2 is going to be negative 2x. Negative x times 1 is negative x. If you didn't have that 1 there, you would not have been able to get back to where you started, which means it wouldn't have been correct. Okay, so that was my check. All right, so here's what I need you to do. I need you to write a summary, and then you can start on your assignment. Okay, and then once your summary is done, you can file your page. Oop, that's the wrong binder, hold on. Okay, so this is going to be notes. Factoring expressions. And once you're done with filing it and finishing up your summary, go ahead and go to your assignment sheet. You can see that this is the wrong assignment sheet. Sorry about that. Okay, here's your assignment sheet. Your assignment for the day is handout 7-8B. Now I realize that a whole bunch of you left your assignment packet in my classroom when I passed it out. So I have left some extras with the sub if you need it. But at this point, after today, you should be done with 7-8A and 7-8B. Okay, I'll have a great rest of your day and I will see you all tomorrow.